Welcome everybody, this is the first official episode of the Seriously Sports Vodcast. That's a video podcast. You sticking with me? You got it? So the format of this is really, it's going to follow loosely around what I was already doing, but a little bit more freeform. I just wanted to have a little bit more fun, be more comfortable, you know. So without further ado, here we go. We are officially a quarter way through the season, and let's just say some teams look better than others. On the recap, starting with my own favorite team, the Dolphins fell to 0-4, getting blown out again, this time by the Chargers. But I'm not upset, because I, and likely many other Dolphin fans out there, have caved and begun to embrace the tank. The Tank-a-thon is in full effect. I even started watching Alabama games, and Tua's doing good, by the way. But the reason for my optimism stems from something enlightening that my dad said to me. Quick sidebar, my dad and I are the lone Dolphins fans in our family. Most of our family lives in Tampa, and therefore they support their local team, and as you can imagine, there's plenty of misery to go around. We also have a couple Cowboys fans and at least one Redskins fan. Regardless, I spoke to my dad the other day and he said, "Son, we're 0-3, but at least it's because we're trying to be." And I'm just like, whoa. Because he's right. There are other teams out there with the same record as us, but they're actually trying to win. So by comparison, we're not doing too bad. You see, ever since Josh Rosen became the starter, it's become apparent to me that despite what they say, the coaches are in on the tank as well. You can see it in the play calling. That's why they get off to hot starts before tapering off. Zach Schaumler of Strong Opinion Sports pulled a particular play that perfectly displayed this. It was a 3rd and 3, and the Dolphins ran a deep pass play that required Josh to hang back there while the play developed. He was sacked. Come on, guys. This offense, or at least the one that they intend to run when they're actually trying to win, is based on New England's offense. Run the ball, quick hits, take the deep shot when it's given to you. That's not what they're doing here. That tells me they're fully invested in this tank too. I guess they figure, f it, full reboot. Let's start over, rebuild from the ground up. But while we're at it, can we change the logo back? Or change it to anything other than that phallic figure of failure? Now, when they originally embarked on the campaign to change the logo, they said they were trying to modernize it, apparently forgetting that the previous logo was the modernized version of the time-tested logo they had back when the team was good. And then I read this article with some dude saying, "Well, technically, because the helmet was located where the blowhole would be, the dolphin in the previous logo is suffocating." Oh, shut up, nerd. It's a football team. And the dolphin was wearing a football helmet, which, by the way, have holes in it. Can we not argue about the realism of a cartoon logo? Now, there's a few teams that are still winless, but only one of them is really a major threat to the Dolphins' first overall pick, at least in my eyes. And that's the Bengals. The Bengals are in trouble. See, they were one of those teams that got caught up in that sweeping trend across the league of hiring young, offensive-minded head coaches, more specifically, Sean McVay's guys. To quote Pat McAfee, McVay has to feel as if his dick is very large. Zach Taylor was the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator for a year for the Rams, under Sean McVay. And so, he was hired by the Bengals to jumpstart an offense that was deemed middle of the road. The problem? At the quarter-way mark of the season, Zach Taylor's Bengals are 0-4. I thought it was funny last week because they started 0-3, and to Bengals fans at that point, I was gonna say, don't worry, the last head coach you guys had that started 0-3 stuck around for about 15 years after that. I talk, of course, of Marvin Lewis. And then they lost their 4th game, and I had to look, I was just so curious. The only time Marvin Lewis's Bengals started 0-4 was in his 6th year as head coach. They finished 4-11-1. But then they made the playoffs the following year. So the question on most Bengals fans' minds at this point has to be, was Zach Taylor the right choice? For the moment, let's forget the defense. If the defense can't stop anybody, whatever, he wasn't hired to fix the defense. but through 4 games, they have been outscored 57 to 110. Dude, what the fuck? The offense of this so-called offensive genius has scored over 17 points just once this season, while opposing teams have just laid waste to them. It's like they had a decent-looking car, like a Honda Civic or something, that also performed pretty decently, and then they decided, fuck it, let's swap the engine out for a Prius engine because it's more fuel efficient. Now your decent-looking car won't get out of second gear and has to be driven in the far right lane on the interstate with the hazard lights on. So they seem to be headed for a fairly early pick, and I don't mind if they get one, just as long as they don't come between the Dolphins and Tua. You may recall me in an earlier video being a little critical of Tua, and you'd be incorrect, because while I was talking about Tua, the point I was making was that Alabama hasn't produced many successful NFL quarterbacks, at least not recently. That being said, I don't like Oregon quarterbacks. I didn't like Mariota, who is still believed by many to be the best they've ever produced, and I don't care for Herbert. And if it came down to Tua or Herbert, I'd prefer Tua. Let Cincy take Herbert. I think all parties will be happier with that outcome. One of the other 0-4 teams isn't as big of a threat because they drafted a quarterback this year. A quarterback that should definitely stay on the bench until their offensive line gets sorted out. I'm talking about the Redskins. And for the record, I think Haskins is going to be really good when he gets a good coach. Now, I've talked about this before. I'm not sure how Jay Gruden has stayed employed as long as he has, but come on, dude. What happened against the Giants was just shameful. Shoving your rookie into a game where you're down 14-0, he hasn't had any reps with the first team. Your number one receiver, who by the way is the only player on the offense that your rookie quarterback does have a rapport with because they played together in college, he's not in the game. He missed it with an injury. The offensive line can't block rain with an umbrella. It's a recipe for disaster, and it reeked of desperation. If the Redskins were a smart organization, which it's certainly looking like they're not, they'd fire Gruden immediately, bench the kid until they regain direction, and they'd probably change their name. Which, while we're on the subject, not sure how we missed this one, but have y'all ever thought about calling yourselves the Washington Warriors? I mean, it sounds cool, you wouldn't have to change your logo, and it's not nearly as offensive as my alternatives. Wagon burners, or my personal favorite, timber. Which, by the way, I found both those terms on a convenient database of racial slurs, rsdb.org. God, I love the internet. But just a thought. Washington Warriors. Sounds pretty slick, right? If I'm Dan Snyder, I'm getting right on that. Hey, if you've enjoyed this, then please do check out some of my other content on the channel. I've recently reorganized it to make things a little easier to find. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends, because I'm trying to grow this channel and do this shit for a living. And help from viewers like you is what will make that a reality. I'm Savak. This is Seriously Sports, my vodcast. Thanks for watching.